Hey everybody, this is Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews, and today I'm going to be doing my monthly upcoming preview of my October to-be-read list. So let's jump right into it. The first book that I'm going to be completing this month is going to be Arc 2 of Mother of Learning. This is by Domagoj Kuramaich, and I'm going to be reading this in physical book format, and I should be actually finishing that today. I've been reading it for a little while now. It's a decently sized book. It's 664 pages, and I'm liking it a lot. You know, I did a recap of Arc 1 a little while ago, and essentially what this series is, it's a time loop story where there's a character caught in a time loop. He doesn't know why. He wants to get out of it, but at the same time, he's essentially trying to save the world from this impending disaster, or maybe not the world, but like his country. And it's this really fun dynamic to the time loop where it's got a lot of different aspects to it because he has to keep increasing his own power. He's a mage, but he is able to get more powerful because he can keep going through this loop and nobody else can. In uncovering the mystery, I'm not a big mystery fan, but it's really fun going through this. So yeah, I'm really enjoying Arc 2, and I'll have my review of that up in a couple days. But yeah, looking forward to finishing that up and then starting Arc 3 up sometime in like a month or two. And I'm going to predict that unless the ending is amazing or bad, I'm thinking about a 4.5 predicted rating here. The next book I'm going to be finishing is another physical book, and this is Making Money. This is a Discworld book by Pratchett, and I should be finishing this up about October 3rd. This is a pretty light read. It's 480 pages. I mean, not super light, but for fantasy, it's light. I like epic fantasy, and those can be like 1,000 pages. And I don't really know too much about what this is about. I think this is another book in the Industrial Revolution arc, and I've only read one of those books before. And yeah, I mean, all my Terry Pratchett books are in the same, 3.5 to 4.5 range. Some of them get like a 5 if they're particularly awesome, like most of the City Watch books. But yeah, looking forward to this, and yeah, I'll say a 4 out of 5 predicted rating. The next book I'm going to be finishing is Jade War. This is the second book in the Greenbone Saga series by Fonda. This is a trilogy, second book in the trilogy, and this is an audiobook. I'm currently listening to it. And so far I'm loving it. I'm like, 20% through, maybe 25% through. And I should be finishing that up on October 7th. And that's 608 pages. This story is so good. I love this trilogy, and I get why literally everybody I know talks highly of this trilogy. Because it's like The Godfather, and The Godfather trilogy is like my favorite, not just trilogy, but the individual movies, maybe not the third one, but the first and second movies are my favorite movies of all time. And so to read a book that can evoke the same emotions that you go through on that and the same kind of backdrop, but with an entirely new plot line, new characters, new scenery, it's got this Asian-inspired background to it, it's got a magic system in it. The story is incredible. I mean, everything about it's good. I can't wait to finish this book up, and it's almost undoubtedly going to be a 5 out of 5, and that is my prediction, and I'm pretty sure I'll be right. The next one is going to be Call of the Bone Ships. This is the second book in the Tidechild trilogy by R.J. Barker. I'm going to be doing this physical book and should be finishing that up October 8th, and this is 528 pages, and I'm going to predict another 5 out of 5. I don't want to be too optimistic here, but the first book in this trilogy, I think it was The Bone Ships, I think that's all it was called, was incredible. It was like a perfect 5 out of 5. Every single different thing that I rate my books on, the story, the magic, the world, the writing, the characters, were all like the top of the top. And it's just so good. I'm a sucker for like a good nautical fantasy book. There's not a lot of them, but pretty much every nautical fantasy book I've read has been incredible. And I don't know if that's because I'm, biased towards that as a genre or like a really micro subgenre, or whether the books that I've happened to read have been amazing. I'm going with the latter. I think those books have been amazing. I'm sure that you could write a nautical style fantasy book that could be horrendous. But yeah, I love the first one. It's this general story of these ships that are made out of dead dragons, and they're hunting a dragon. And you might think you know what the plot's about, but I didn't ruin anything because it is much more complex than that with a lot of twists. And I don't want to ruin anything, but I can't wait to read this book. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is I'm looking forward to reading this book more than any other book on this list. So the next is going to be Half the World. This is the second book in the Shattered Sea trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I'm reading this via audio. Should be finishing that up around October 11th. This is a small read, 400 pages. Now I'm going to predict a 3 out of 5. The last one I read was a 4 out of 5, but it was like a 3 out of 5 until the very end of the book, and the end saved it. I thought the end was wonderful in true Abercrombie form, but I've come to find out that this is a YA series, and I'm not a big YA reader. And by not a big, I mean I don't read YA. I like adult fantasy, I like grimdark, and YA is like the opposite of grimdark. And I thought I was getting into a more grimdark series coming from the First Law and Joe Abercrombie, who I see as like a master of that genre. But he wrote this YA series, and I heard afterwards that he got like a different publisher to be able to do it. And yeah, it was okay. The ending was great, but maybe the same thing will happen again, but I'm predicting low. I'm going 3 out of 5. Then I'm going to be reading Son of a Liche. This is the second in the Dark Prophet series by Zachary Pike, and that title is hysterical. The first book was hysterical, and I'm predicting that I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. And this is 606 pages. The first book in this series, Orconomics, is one of the funniest books I've ever read. And I just did a review last month of this, and I just can't wait to read the second one. I have heard that the second book in this series is a big step back. Although, let me take that back. I've gotten mixed opinions. The overwhelming opinion I got on the first book was that it's incredible. And now I'm hearing the second book is either incredible or a big step down. So I'm hoping that it's more on the incredible side. And I'm sticking my neck out there and saying it is going to be. And yeah, can't wait to read it. It's just a fun, the first one was like a fun parody on like capitalism, very Pratchett style, but funnier than most Pratchett books, which is odd to say because I love Terry Pratchett. But apparently I just love Zachary Pike too, because that book was amazing. So let's hope for the best here. Then I'm going to be reading The Bloody Rose. This is the second in the Band series by Nicholas Eames. I think there's only 2 books out so far, but there is a third being planned. I'll be finishing this up in physical format around the 19th. And this is 544 pages. And yeah, I'm going to go another 5 out of 5. I'm being pretty optimistic this month on what I think my scores are going to be. In general, I'm kind of an optimistic kind of guy when it comes to books. I hope for the best. And it ends up making me like the books more because I'm hoping they'll be better. And I think hype plays a lot into your enjoyability of books. At least it does for me. And the Kings of the Wild, the first book in the series, was I think my favorite book that I've read this year, and one of my favorite books of all time. Definitely in the top 20, could even be top 10. It's just so good. But the reason I'm not saying that I'm looking forward to this book more than 1 or 2 of the other books on my list this month is, again, I've heard a lot of mixed opinions on this book. I feel like a lot of the comments I got on my review of the last book was that the next book's incredible, you're going to love it. And then I heard a lot of people that said big step down. Whereas I universally heard, much like the last one that I just talked about, the Dark Prophet series, that universally the first book was amazing. So hopefully I'm in that camp of thinking the second one is just as good as the first. But even if it's half as good, it's still going to be a great book because that first one is just so incredible. But the series is essentially, well, I don't know what the second book's going to be about because the first one ended up nice and tidy. But the first book was about a band of heroes, aging heroes that have not been a part of their war band in a long time, but they're bringing the band back together and for one last hurrah, one big adventure that they have to go on. And it sounds like I'm using terms that come for like an actual band, like a music group, and that's on purpose because the book is not so much a parody of music, but it plays a lot of inspiration by that, and a lot of the terms they use are very intentional to play off of the rock music, 70s rock in particular, genre. So, and I heard the next book is like 80s rock, and I'm much more of an 80s rock guy than a 70s rock, so maybe that'll make me love it. We'll see. Then the next book I'll be reading is Jade Legacy. This is the last book in the Greenbone Saga by Fonda. This is 768 pages, and this is going to be a 5 out of 5. I have heard from everybody that the last book in this series is the best of the bunch. I am obsessed with the first book in this series. So far, I'm loving the second, and I am very confident that I'm going to love the third, and I can't wait to read it. Then I'm going to be reading Flowers of Esthelm. Who knows how to say that word? But this is the third book in the Wandering Inn series by Pirateaba. I'm reading this in physical book format. Should be finishing this up around October 28th, and this is 974 pages. Another 5 out of 5 prediction. I have given a 5 out of 5 to the first 2 Wandering Inn books, and why not this one too? The Wandering Inn is a web serial, and I'm like the furthest kind of person that would be into a web serial. I like dark stories, real physical books, but oh my gosh, this is good. You know, I'm a big video game player. Not as much anymore. I still play a decent amount, but I used to play obsessively. And this is like a video game, like an RPG video game in book form. Like characters are leveling up. It's got this low stakes aspect to it with high stakes aspects also. The world building's incredible. Everything about this book's incredible, except, you know, the writing quality, while it improved from the second book to the first, is not as good as like the titans of the fantasy genre. But I don't need an amazing writer to tell me a great story. You know, I think of Brandon Sanderson a lot as not being the greatest technical writer in the world, but he tells such a compelling story that he's one of my favorite authors. That's what this series is turning into for me, is that I can recognize the faults that it have, but I can instantly say I don't care because the book is so good. And let's just hope for the best on this one too. All these are free, by the way, on the website. I happen to like reading on my Kindle, which is why I buy them. They're like $4.99 for enormous books, maybe $3.99. They're cheap, but you can get this all free if you like reading on the computer. And then the last book of the month I'll be reading is Unseen Academicals. This is a Discworld book, close to the end. I think it's like the second or third from the last. I'm almost through. I'm going chronologically through Discworld. This is by Terry Pratchett. I'm reading this in physical book format and should be reading this on the 31st of the month. And this is 540 pages. I think this is the last Rincewind book. I'm not a huge Rincewind fan. He's a wizard. The Discworld books are split up into like subplots that you should read all of those books together and not out of order. All of these, the Rincewind books you can read out of order. They don't really matter. And yeah, he's just kind of goofy. They're not as funny as some of the other books. And I like the side characters in these books. They're the heroes of these books. And hopefully the side characters in this one are awesome, because Rincewind's just like a mediocre character to me. And I'm going to predict a 3 out of 5 on that one. So my average predicted score is a 4.45. And if I can hit that, that'll be the greatest reading month that I've ever had in my entire life. Because my average is a 3.96. And yeah, that would be crazy if I got my average that high. But my predicted average is always much higher than what it ends up being. But honestly, I don't know what book on this list is going to tank. You know, the ones that potentially could be a problem for me are the Discworld books, the Half the World book. That's probably the biggest one that's going to be a problem. But I already said it's a 3 out of 5, so to be lower than that. And then maybe The Son of a Lich and Bloody Rose, maybe I'll agree with a lot of people and say that they weren't as good, so maybe that'll take it down too. Not a lot of room for improvement on this list, though, is what I'll say. So yeah, that's my list. Let me know what your thoughts, and I can't wait to share your reviews of all of these books. So thanks so much for watching, and as always, happy reading to you.